Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful 29th of May, 2024. Coming to this episode of the Crusty podcast, Hatred of History. That's right, Parks Canada doing its best to reinvent the history of our first prime minister by calling him a colonizer and a murderer and everything else in the book. Oh my God, what's this world coming to? All that more about the podcast. Please stick around. Listener review discretion is advised because I will swear. I will smoke cigarettes and make funny faces and noises about our leaders. See you in a bit.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me.
Yes, sir.
There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues and life. Here's Crusty.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 285 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Hatred of history and the absolute buffoonery that Parks Canada, a taxpayer's service, is doing in the name of this country. How are you, everybody? I'm Crusty Canuck, and this podcast is also brought to you and supported in part by Veterans for Freedom Network. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Veterans for Freedom Stand 2. And coming soon, Veterans for Freedom TV. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Like myself and other like-minded veterans and other people that like common sense and freedom will be coming at you on Veterans for Freedom TV. Stay tuned for that. I'm your host, Crusty, ladies and gentlemen. As the title card says, hatred for history. So I've been reading a couple of articles from the likes of Toronto Sun and National Post, and you can also see Independent Media Rebels has done a good story on it. Harrison Faulkner from True North Media has done an excellent story about this whole thing. And they basically reopened Bellevue House, Sir John A. Macdonald's residence when he was alive. Canada's first prime minister. My American listeners out there, Sir John A. Macdonald was a Scotsman, lawyer. It ended up becoming Canada's first prime minister when Confederation was formed in the year of 1867. That was mandatory history learning back in my youth. But I guess there's so many experts and wokies out there that want to reinvent everything and put emphasis on today's morality versus yesterday's glory versus yesterday's buffoonery and ignorance. And making a long story short, I'll read an article here shortly for you all. I'm going to read an article here for you shortly. Basically, Parks Canada, it's a national service. It's a government service. A lot of Canadian tax dollars go into keeping our national parks what they are: pristine, clean, fun for everybody, all that good stuff. But I guess because of the whole new woke trend that's going on right now, Bellevue House is open to the general public again. It's been closed for 6 years. Now, we've all heard the stories about every major city in this country taking down Sir John A., calling him a colonizer, calling him a murderer, and all this stuff against the First Nations. Now, I'll be the first one to admit that the First Nations in Canada, First Nations in the United States, and the First Nations in Mexico did get a raw deal. They did. And I'll say that. And I'm not denying it. I'm not denying history. And I'm not going to rewrite history either. Okay. I'm not going to deny it or rewrite it. Okay. But every empire that has come and gone, it doesn't matter if it's from the Romans, the Mongols, the French, the Portuguese, the Greeks, the Egyptians, you name it. Every major empire that has existed in, let's say, the past thousands of years, we'll say 1,000 years. Okay, has done stupid things to people, not only to indigenous people of other lands, but to themselves as well. So when someone tells me about the colonization of North America, yeah, we were colonized. We are still technically a colony, if you want to think about it that way. I don't really think about it that way because I don't pay any homage to the king. I could care two shits. Okay. People talk about colonization as it was such a terrible thing. And yet North America, as we know it, was colonized by Europeans. So was South America. It was colonized by Europeans. More the Spanish and Portuguese. And then you had the English and French and the Dutch in North America. What's the problem? Now, if anybody out there who thinks that Sir John A. was nothing but a belligerent, drunk racist, okay, then you might as well put every politician in the 1860s in the same bloody category. Okay. Now, with the psychology and the mentalities we have now in today in 2024, Okay. 2024, 150 years since this guy, and you're still holding on to the crimes of those years, then you have a problem. Okay. No one is justifying slavery. No one is justifying the poor treatment of the First Nations. Because I tell you this right now, before Whitey come to North America, and I'm including the Vikings here, prior to Christopher Columbus, did every indigenous tribe get along and with harmony and peace and security and serenity? Did they all sit by the rivers and collect fish and laugh and talk about the gods and talk about the sun? Eh? Was it just one big utopia? One big Garden of Eden, so to speak? Did they not fight each other for land? Did they not fight over the buffalo, fight over deer, fight over fish, fight over territories? I'm pretty well sure that the First Nations were just the same as the Europeans. The only thing that was different with the Europeans is that it might have been some more disease. There were muskets, there was gunpowders, there was better weaponry. Certain organizations might have been superior, right? Did they all live in peace? One way or the other, they did too. But I can't sit and assess what every individual was thinking back those years because I wasn't alive back then. And all these protesters, the same thing. Were you alive back then, Parks Canada? Were you around in the 1860s when Canada was still technically a colony of Her Majesty Queen Victoria? Were you alive then? Were you alive when the U.S. Civil War was raging and a lot of Americans killed each other in the name of slavery and trade and other issues? Were you alive then? Were you around to psychologically assess everybody? Right? See, people forget that the mentality was different then too. The mentality has been different every decade, right? There were some advancements that came around the 1880s, some advancements that came around the 1900s. So while you're sitting there harping about what Sir John A. did, how about every coal mine in this country? Okay, get this. Every coal mine in this country used to put children in the mines and make them work 12, 18-hour days. And this isn't just First Nations kids. This is all kids. Okay? That's white kids too, and that's black kids. Put kids in coal mines, right? Where's the outrage about that? Oh, our colonial capitalist past. Oh my goodness. Where's the outrage when people used to sterilize the mentally handicapped, thinking that if you sterilize these people, they will not spread the mentally challenged. They won't spread the whole retardation, as they used to call it, right? Where's the outrage over that? I hear nothing. Well, probably because I'm online. I don't expect you to respond, but I think you see my point here. No one in my life is actually justifying what happened to the First Nations. There are a lot of terrible things. A lot of terrible things happen to Irish Canadians too. A lot of terrible things happen to Chinese Canadians, Jamaican Canadians, East Indian Canadians, a lot of newcomers that come to Canada. A lot of terrible things happen to them too. And can you say there was bigotry and racism? Yes, you can. But is that your claim to fame? To be a bunch of history-denying douchebags right now? Is that your claim to fame to justify that behavior? To get government pay? To receive government Canadian tax dollars? To walk around and explore and to tell tourists that our first prime minister was nothing but a bag of hammers? That's not right. Right? It's just insulting. You're basically taking a dump where you eat.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 285 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Hatred of history. You look at the picture there. There's I think that's from Winnipeg, somewhere in Manitoba. Calling Sir John A. murderer and colonizer. Well, you can call anybody a colonizer who lived in Canada in the 1860s because Canada was still technically a colony. So that's not really a big insult. Was he a murderer? Did he pass some orders to hurt some First Nations? Sure. How many First Nations hurt other First Nations too? Like I said, prior to North America being discovered as it was by Christopher Columbus, or correction, as by the Vikings who were in Newfoundland, I think a few hundred years before. Okay. Don't give me this utopia BS. Human beings have been fighting other human beings since the dawn of mankind. Note that I said mankind. I'm not going to say people kind, mankind. And it doesn't matter who had bow and arrows, doesn't matter who had spears, doesn't matter who had muskets or cannon. It was human nature. Can we fix history? Why is there still so many people out there that want to try to do that? Why is there so many people out there that figure they have to, just to make things easier, because they have to be more comfortable to understand the plight of our races? How about we start understanding the plight of the human race, regardless of what color you are, regardless of what gender you are? Can we understand those simple things? The plight of the human race. Canada was made on immigration. So was the United States. So was Mexico. Believe it or not. There's other cultures out there that speak Spanish, not just Mexicans and Spaniards. There's lots of other cultures out there that speak Spanish. Lots of other cultures that speak French too. And it doesn't matter if they adopted it via colonization or not. They still adopted it. Okay? Can I change the plight of certain individuals that were taken from their homes and put into a school? No. Can you? Can we justify what happened those years? No. The trick is to learn from it. But don't just add your own narrative out there to make you feel better. That's just terrible. History is not just for you to alter and change to make yourself feel better. History is there for everyone to learn from. You may be disgusted at what certain individuals did. Well, yeah. There's a little guy from Austria, little mustache, who did some terrible things. We keep learning about him. There's another idiot from Georgia, not the state, but the country just south of Russia, right? Who had a big hand in the red and white revolution back in Russia. He did some terrible things. We're constantly told about him. Unfortunately, there's some idiots in Canadian and American universities that take his point of view and take his side. There was an idiot from Cuba by the name of Che Guevara who said he was such a revolutionary. Oh, if I do this for the people of Cuba, eh? He was a doctor. He was a chauvinist. He was a racist. He was a sexist. And there's rumors there he was a bit of a PDF too, right? But you want to praise guys like that, you look at that history as, oh, something to stand for. Really? See, my problem is with some of these individuals is they don't concentrate on Canada. Yeah, we got some bad bets of our history too. As I mentioned about putting kids in coal mines, as I mentioned, sterilizing the mentally challenged, right? I wonder how many people out there still think that women got the right to vote in the 1960s or the 70s. I wonder how many people out there still think that you might get HIV from touching somebody. See, every decade we've had our dramas, and every decade we've had our share of ignorance too. We've had so many ignorant statements and so many ignorant people out there telling us what to think, what to do, when to do it, right? Now we've got Parks Canada's officials talking about colonialism still. Canada hasn't been officially a colony since 1982, when you think about it, when we signed our Charter of Rights, right? And unofficially, Canada's kind of stopped being a colony after April 9th, 1917. When Canadian men who sat in the trenches for days upon days, in the rot, in the filth, with the rats and the death, and took out German positions, did something that the French and the British couldn't do. So when you talk about how Canada came to be, how Canada developed, it didn't just take blood, sweat, and tears and prejudice and the grace of whatever God or the grace of whatever religion. It took death and sacrifice. And I'm also talking about sacrifice of poor Chinese individuals that were building the railway, and the sacrifice of First Nations that were standing up for their families and what they believed in. So you can talk about racism and colonialism all you want. You're full of it. It's because of the model that has been presented to you, the model where you went to train to get your education or to get your degree in theater arts and ballet and avocado toast preparedness. That gives you the job to work at Parks Canada or other bureaucratic jobs that keep promoting this colonial BS. It's basic Marxism. Try to divide people and try to piss on the people that built things in this country. The people that pay you to tell them history. Tell them a story. Yeah. Was any politician at that time perfect? No. Was the psychology the same as it is now? No. So what do you expect? And I don't care if you're a Black Canadian. I don't care if you're an Asian Canadian. I don't care if you're from East India. I don't care if you're from Pakistan or Bangladesh. I don't care where you're from. Everybody has the opportunity in this country to excel, to thrive, to be, regardless of our colonial past, regardless of the tripe, regardless of the BS and the bigotry. And I've said this numerous times, ladies and gentlemen, on the podcast, where I was not raised in a household where you judge anybody by their skin. You judge people by their actions, how they treat others, and especially how they treat themselves. Right? I guess we have to remind our society about that again, don't we?
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen, episode 285 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Hatred of history. That's what it's coming down to. Right? We can't teach our kids about the joys of Frederick Banting creating insulin. We can't talk about the individual that invented peanut butter or the individual that discovered certain ways of putting satellites into space or the individuals that built the Canadarm. We can't talk about Native Canadians that actually put together some great art and some good music. My friend Peter is Dene. I've been friends with him since 1990. And I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, this man can play guitar to make you cry. He's got a pretty cool bluesy voice, and he's got some great lyrics because he's got the natural talent and the passion. And never once has he ever given me a hard time in my life for being a white guy. And never once have I ever given him a hard time for being First Nations. Because we have common ground. It's that simple. Find common ground. Now, what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave some articles in the description for you too. You can read along to it. I'm not going to read along. It's a lot of it's winded. And it's basically, it's kind of offensive when it comes to the logic of these parks officials and bureaucrats and admins alike. It's extremely offensive when you think about it, that I have to be guilty for something I never did, or you have to be guilty for something you never did, right? Dr. Jordan Peterson made a point in one of his many speeches. How well off are you compared to your parents? How well off are you compared to your grandparents? And I always think about that when I read these articles, because I don't believe in white privilege. I believe in privilege. Doesn't matter if you're white or not. Because I went to school with kids. Some were black, some were brown. Some of the brown kids had more money than some of the white kids. That wasn't a racial thing. That was just maybe their parents were a bit smarter or they chose different professions. There you go. And I don't buy this whole colonialization thing. Yeah, Canada was a colony. So was the United States. So was Mexico. Why do we have to keep going back to that to further a frickin' narrative? So some kid can feel special about himself or his or themselves? Huh? To those kids out there, get out and see the fucking world. Because the only thing you're going to learn about culture is actually getting into that culture and talking to people from that culture, rather than listening to some fucking blowhard professor that wants you to pay 50 grand a year for a half-assed fucking degree, which won't get you a job after 4 years of graduation. Just more goddamn debt. Think about that. It comes to just world experience. Okay. It comes to actually looking things up properly, not just by Google, but by these too. Encyclopedias. They're fantastic. I've written many an essay based on information that I've received, that I've read about. Encyclopedias, actually reading and using your own thoughts rather than being told what to think, right? See, this whole colonialism and racism BS wasn't around 10 years ago because people got along, right? People got along. And I'm going to put another challenge out there, ladies and gentlemen. If anybody who is left-leaning, okay, left-leaning and thinks the world owes them something, and I don't care what color you are, I don't care what gender you are, how you identify. What I care about is that if you got something to bring to the table of this discussion, then bring it. Bring it to my attention. My contact information is right there in my description. Reach out to me, talk to me, send me an email. Let me know what's on your mind. You want to have a Zoom debate with me? Let me know. I'll fucking set it up. If not, then maybe you shouldn't be walking around the street waving a flag of a foreign nation. And if not, maybe you shouldn't be walking around screaming to high heavens about injustices over there when you should be worrying about what's going on right here in your own backyard, in your own country, a country that's provided you wonderful things, the opportunity to work, the opportunity to go to school, the opportunity to thrive, and the opportunity and the freedom to speak your fucking mind. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not going to sit and dwell all day about, feelings and narratives. We've seen enough of it too. We've seen more than enough of it, and it just gets ridiculous. It gets ridiculous all the time. It's just, how many times do we have to sit and watch these individuals, constantly tell us that we have to be this and have to be that, and we have to do better here and do better there while they're sitting there shaking their hands at us, dictating us. How is that fair for anybody? If I commit a crime, I'll feel guilty. If I intentionally go on my way to hurt somebody, trust me, I do have a conscience that will sort me the hell out. If I break the law, of course, there'll be a cop knocking on my door saying, "Where were you at this time?" You know what I mean? But I'm not going to feel guilty for what happened in the 1860s. It's shameful. Yeah. 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, turn of the century, turn of the 20th century. But if you expect every person to feel guilty for what happened in the past, then how are you going to learn from it? How are you going to learn from it? How are you going to do better the next decade and the next generation? Something to think about. Just a reminder too, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support this podcast, I please highly encourage I get some financial support. Like I said, I'm not going to demand it or beg for it, but you look at the column here. You can support the podcast by asking me anything in the Ask Me app. Link will be in the description. Click on it. Type me a nice question. Nothing sexual, nothing filthy, nothing racist or bigoted or sexist, because I don't tolerate misandry either. And ask me what you want. It costs you $3. And if I make enough funds, then I'll definitely give half to the Veterans Association Food Bank out of Edmonton, Alberta. They do great things for veterans. So please ponder that too. Right? Like and share this podcast all over your social media platforms too, if you can, ladies and gentlemen. Do what you can to help this podcast out. Keep our algorithm going. Let the Canadian voices be heard. Let all Canadian voices be heard. It doesn't matter if you're black, doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're straight, gay, bi, tri, or you just want to toss the coin and make a wish. I don't give a fuck. Just be genuine, be yourself. That's all. That's all it's got to be, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to ramble on about this too, but like I said, I'll leave a few articles here in the description for you to follow too. Keen Bexty from Counter Signal. He used to work for Rebel Media. Hell of a reporter. He's got a story here about the mass graves that happened in Kamloops. There's a plot twist. Apparently, some chief is saying that all the anomalies are there, but all the bodies are incinerated. And I'm just going, what? What is this now too? And I'm just shaking my head. It seems like everybody's looking for an excuse to be hateful. Everybody's looking for an excuse to have the blame game. This guy's getting tired of the blame game because that's not what I fought for. I fought for Canada. What say you? Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 29th of May, 2024. This has been episode 285 of the Crusty Canuck podcast, Hatred of History. Now, I might do a part 2. I don't know, but it's probably in the works. Needless to say, I will be back again on Friday. Pardon my absence yesterday. I had some technical issues with my soundboard here too. I couldn't get the microphone to stop crackling for some reason. So maybe I had it close to a radio or something. I don't know, but I cleaned the system out, reloaded everything, and just tried to get everything on the go because you, my wonderful audience, my wonderful fan base, you guys are worth every minute I spend here. And I'm grateful for you all too. I want to say thank you to my new subscribers, especially to California and Virginia and Georgia, USA. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. I am very, very appreciative of your downloads, especially the subscriptions. And my new Rumble subscribers, thank you very much too. Just a reminder though, I don't want any SEOs. So the moment someone gives me a sales pitch, when they comment my video, you're deleted. That simple. But like I say, I've been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 29th of May, 2024. I will have an episode up again on Friday for sure this time. Hopefully everything's good. There's no issues with the microphones or the sound. And I'll be a little more thorough and maybe a little more patient this time instead of tonight. But I wish nothing but good things for you all out there. Do what you can. Weather's getting warmer in my area. So ladies and gentlemen, please hydrate. Keep your chin up. Persevere. Do what you can to help you out in these trying times. Don't be shy. Give a neighbor a hand or two. And we'll do our best just to be as kind as we can. Summertime's coming, so let's look forward to spend some time with our family and friends and just chill by the lake. All that good stuff. Like I said, I've been Crusty Canuck, and I wish good things for you, and I'll see you Friday. And like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, and I'll see you Friday night. Bye for now.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Stay sane and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast.
I'll show you my cooch for $5.99. I'll show you my boobies for $6. Cheers.